Let's invite those who would like to ask a question.
Some of them have already put their names down, so I'll start inviting them.
Right, please do.
Diane Clark, please.
Miss Diane or Mrs. Diane?
Diane.
Diane.
Diane, yes.
Miss?
Miss.
Right.
Question I'd like to ask is, in exactly what context is the coming of the promised Messiah mentioned in the Quran?
Come closer.
In exactly what context is the coming of the promised Messiah mentioned in the Quran?
What context the promised Messiah mentions his advent or what?
Is mentioned in the Quran. What exactly is the context?
I understand in Quran, but what in Quran are you particularly inquiring from me?
He's coming. He's coming.
Advent. This is why I said Advent.
Yes. The advent of the promised Messiah,
right.
yeah.
I understand. Thank you very much. You happen to be an Ahmadi, I suppose?
Yes.
The way you have framed your question. Are you from the Gambia?
No.
From Nigeria? From Ghana?
No, I was born in England.
Huh?
I was born here.
She was born here.
No, I mean the origin, before you came here.
Nevis in the West Indies. That's where my parents are from.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Hazrat Masih Maud, the promised Messiah, has spoken of many verses in relation to his advent, which clearly speak of that future advent. Particularly, he brought to the focus of our attention one verse of Surah Jummah, right in the beginning. In Surah Jummah, I'll read the first three verses and then you'll understand. With reference to that, I'm going to build my answer. It says, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا منهم يتلو عليهم آياته ويزكيهم ويعلمهم الكتاب والحكمة وإن كانوا من قبل لفي ضلال مبين وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا بهم وهو العزيز الحكيم ذلك فضل الله يؤتيه من يشاء والله ذو الفضل العظيم. The first verse which I have recited is هو الذي بعث في الأميين رسولا. It is Allah, the same Allah who is mentioned, who raised the Holy Prophet Muhammad Rasulullah from among the illiterate people of Arabia or the illiterate people of the world. Either way it can be translated. Unlettered people. While he was one of them. But what a transformation. Now the same person has been turned into a teacher of the whole world. What is the instrument which brought about this revolution? This instrument is being mentioned now after this. It says, يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِهِ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ. He has started reciting the verses of Allah which are revealed to him. And that is the big change which has occurred. And then when he recites the verses, وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ, with the blessing of that contact with Allah, that communion with Allah, he has acquired the power of purification. He receives messages from Allah, passes them on to the people, and purifies them. This is the second claim made. The third is, he teaches them the law, that is the divine law revealed to him. And the fourth claim is that he also explains the underlying wisdom in each injunction of the law. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ is the teaching of law. يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْحِكْمَةِ means the underlying wisdom. Now with that, the verse comes to end, and in the end, the word is kept by this expression, وَإِن كَانُوا مِن قَبْلُ لَفِي ضُلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. While the fact is that before the advent of this prophet, all the people were in manifest error. He came to rectify all the errors. Now the statement is completed. Suddenly, in the second verse, a turn is taken. And this is which I draw your attention to. This is the main part of the verse to which Hazrat Masih Maud drew our attention. It says, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. He raised the same prophet also among a people, is different people, آخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ, who have not even met these earlier people. But so far they have not met. Later on, they will be brought together. آخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ, and God is well capable. I prefer the warmth, heat, rather than the noise, please. So, the Holy Quran says that he would also be raised, آخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ, among a people who are not yet born. But they will be counted as if they had met the earlier people. They would be counted among the same as trained by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself. ذَلِكَ وَهُوَ الْعَزِيزُ الْحَكِيمُ. This is a very strange thing to declare, to claim, but God is all-powerful, and when He does something, He does with dignity. And He also is all-wise. So what He has decided to do, He will be able to do it, but not haphazardly, with a system, with a wisdom behind it. Then it says, ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. This second advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, which is mentioned, is going to be a sign of Allah's blessing, Fadlullah. And Allah knows where to bestow His blessing. Nobody can dictate terms to Allah, that these are fit people and that are not, and so on and so forth. He is the owner, He is the master. Whichever people He chooses for bestowing His blessing, He can do that. That was a warning that next time the representation of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah will not be from the same people of Arabia from whom He rose Himself in the original manifestation of Islam. Because ذَلِكَ فَضْلُ اللَّهِ يُؤْتِيهِ مَن يَشَاءُ. It's a very clear warning that you have no right to ask God to create another representative of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah from the Arabs themselves. Allah is the master. He chooses whenever He so does to manifest Himself wherever He likes. So now, this is my interpretation so far. This is the interpretation which was taught to us by Masih Maud, but has it any support from the verdict of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself? This is the most vital question raised here. If we can support this understanding of the verse with a very clear verdict of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as reported in the most authentic book of traditions, then there shouldn't be any hesitation on the part of Muslims to accept this. And now I'm turning to that. Now this is where Masih Maud and His coming, and the Mahdi and His coming and Advent are all mentioned in this verse. A very definite, clear message that in future a people who have not met the earlier people would be blessed by the re-advent of Muhammad Rasulullah, and his re-advent would bring the latter people and the earlier people together. This is the blessing of Allah to whomever He bestows. It is His choice. Now when this verse was revealed, Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sitting in company. And when he recited these verses, people were naturally amazed because the message seemed to be so strange, as if Muhammad Rasulullah would come again, himself, in person. and all the beginning of Islam would be repeated once again, all over. So someone among them asked this question. He thought this is, of course, the accepted meaning, that he would come again. So instead of inquiring whether you would come again or not, he inquired among whom would it happen? Who would be the blessed people who would witness your re-advent? That was the spirit of the question. And the questioner asked, Man haulai ya Rasulullah? Ya Rasulullah, O Prophet of Allah, who would be those people, who were mentioned, among whom there would be the re-advent? Now imagine that the answer was regarding the nature and identification of the people among whom Muhammad Rasulullah would come. The answer is different, which means you have misunderstood the message. It is not the people to whom I would be sent again which are important. The important question is, why should I come again? Should I repeat my visit in person or in representation? And when I have come and the book has been perfected, why is there any need for any divine reformer to reappear? These are the valid questions. Now this is born out of the answer of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, and it resolves all these questions plus something else. After hesitation for a while, when the question was repeated, he turned to Salman Farsi, a companion of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, who was from Persia, who was not Arab, and the only one among the company who was not an Arab. Remember this is very significant. He put his hand on the shoulder of Salman Farsi and said, Law kana al-imanu in the thuraya lanalahu rajulun min haulai. Even if faith deserted the earth and ascended to Pleiades, to the constellation of certain stars, which are called Pleiades, in Arabic they are called Suraya. So even if faith altogether deserted the earth and ascended to Pleiades, from among these people, there would be that man who would bring the faith back from the stars down to the earth. Very clear message that these verses are speaking of a messenger of Allah reappearing, but not in person. Because Muhammad Rasulullah could be from the people to whom Salman Farsi belonged. Salman Farsi belonged to a people of Persia. Muhammad Rasulullah belonged to the people of Arabia. So how could he come from among them? It was a clear message that this verse will be fulfilled in representation, not in my personal reappearance. Someone, a non-Arab, belonging to these people, would come in the latter days. The question as to why, is not the book perfect? Of course it was perfect. Are you not the last messenger till the end of the time to sway authority and to hold authority? Of course, he was the last messenger on earth to sway divine authority over all others, and his word was to be the last word in every decision making. Then why there is a need for any other person? This is the big question which had to be resolved. And in this short answer, he also resolved this question without raising it. He says, Law kana al-imanu in the thuraya, which means if the real, genuine faith deserted the earth and ascended to Pleiades, this could happen in the presence of the Holy Quran, this could happen in the presence of my traditions, this could happen despite the fact that Islam is perfected, yet faith can desert the hearts of the people if they become distorted. And this is, he said, what would happen in the end. The book would be there, the books of traditions would be there, and all the reported conduct, which is called Sunnah, of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah would also be well known to the people of Islam. Yet they would become spiritually dead. That is the reason why, when the book being there fails to revive the people, there has to be a divine reformer to perform this object. And throughout the history of religion, this is what always happens. Torah was there when Jesus Christ came. It was still live as it was still a current authority which was valid and which had not been as yet written off by Allah. Because the Holy Quran repeatedly refers to the Bible and the people of the time of Jesus Christ and also at the time of Muhammad Rasulullah, raising the question, why don't you take your guidance from the Bible? Why don't you act upon the Bible? Why are you leading a life of hypocrisy? You claim that you belong to Bible and you are not acting upon it. So that is what I mean to say the Bible was yet a valid currency, the Old Testament I mean. Yet the people at the time of Jesus Christ had gone all astray. So much so that according to the Quran, their hearts had become likened unto stones. What was needed to revive them was not another book, but a perfect exemplar. The one who would have communion with Allah, who would have spiritual contact with Allah, who would have that special quality to revive people from the dead, spiritually dead I mean. This exactly is the attitude of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah regarding to the future of Islam in answer to the question which was raised about this verse which I have quoted. The prophecy is in the Quran. Explanation of the prophecy is by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. The explanation is found in the most authentic book of all the traditions, that is Bukhari Sharif. What better or stronger evidence would you require to find that Hazrat Masih Maud advent or the Imam Mahdi's advent, or if they don't accept him as that, at least they must agree, all the other Muslims, that the advent of a future promised reformer is mentioned in this verse of the Holy Quran. See? Now the question of who it would be is also resolved in such a beautiful way. As I told you earlier, all the rest in the company were Arabs. So if an Arab was to be chosen by God for representation of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah in the future days, then there were no dearth of Arab shoulders there. But the only shoulder Muhammad Rasulullah chose to put his hand on was a non-Arab shoulder. Some Shiites particularly object to this by pointing out, although this is a very strong hadith, which is also accepted by Shia books, but they have at least one objection against this. They say, all right, if this is true, then why do we find mentioned in hadith that the Imam Mahdi would be from the progeny of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah and from the children of Fatima? And as such, he would be Ahle Bayt. So how would you resolve this issue? Now this is a question which is very valid and it has to be answered. Don't you agree? Okay. Now the word or the term Ahle Bayt is a controversial term. Most Sunnis believe that Ahle Bayt means not only the blood relations or the direct progeny through blood of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah, but also, or perhaps preferably, all the people to whom he addressed himself, who became his spiritual progeny, who accepted him with such sincerity and with such totality that they should be counted as Ahl Bayt. So there are spiritual Ahl Bayt and the literal Ahl Bayt, and the fight goes on between the two as to what is meant by Ahl Bayt. In this context, fortunately for us, the issue is decided by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself. No controversy is left thereafter. You see, once during the time of the Battle of the Ditch, which is called the English name of Jang-e-Ahzab, is Battle of the Ditch, the Battle of Ahzab. During that period, the question that Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself required the people to stand in their family orders. Everyone who belonged to a certain family is to stand in line with that family. Salman Farsi has no relative. So out of courtesy, he could have been called to join his family or somebody else's family. But that is not all that was done by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. He beckoned him to come and stand in line with his own direct progeny. And the words he used were, Salmanu minna, Ahl al-Bayt. It's not just an expression of courtesy. He said, Salman is ours. He is Ahl Bayt. So the issue of Ahl Bayt is resolved by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah himself in relation to the only person whom he chose to represent as belonging to the people from among whom the Mahdi would be raised. So all it is well connected, isn't it? So it's not just wishful thinking on our part. We have very strong, positive evidence from the Quran and the Sunnah that when we declare that the Holy Quran mentions the advent of Masih Maud or Imam Mahdi, it is not imaginary, this is real. Right? Thank you.
Next, I invite Mrs. Ruqayya Usman from Kenya.
From Kenya?
Yes.
Ex-Kenya or freshly from Kenya? I think I have met this lady before, haven't I?
You have met
Yes.
before? No?
Yes, that's right, yes.
No, Ruqayya. She has given her papers
she
to...
She came to see me during family mulaqat, so I remember her. Yes, that's right. Please.
She has given her question to Sister Maha.
Yes.
Sister Maha will read.
Maha, please read on her behalf.
She actually wants the meaning of two verses from Surah al-Nisa.
Right.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبكفرهم وقولهم على مريم بهتانا عظيما وقولهم إنا قتلنا المسيح عيسى ابن مريم رسول الله وما قتلوه وما صلبوه ولكن شبه لهم وإن الذين اختلفوا فيه لفي شك منه ما لهم به من علم إلا اتباع الظن وما قتلوه يقينا بل رفعه الله إليه وكان الله عزيزا حكيما وإن من أهل الكتاب إلا ليؤمنن به قبل موته ويوم القيامة يكون عليهم شهيدا.
Now, this lady, I understand, is not an Ahmadi lady. She belongs to the generally described Sunni sect. Is that right? Right. And she has chosen these two verses, or three verses particularly, with the intention, perhaps, of proving that Jesus Christ was never crucified, he never died, either on cross or afterwards. But instead he was bodily raised to heaven by Allah. And these are the verses which are presented as the mainstay of the Sunni argument against the Ahmadiyya belief that Jesus Christ, although he was saved from death upon cross, yet he died an ordinary death like all other prophets, lived a lifetime like it was on the scale of all of the Prophet's lifetime and died before the advent of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. These are claimed. As against this, these verses are presented. But first of all, let me translate these verses for the benefit of those who do not understand Arabic. وَقَوْلِهِمْ عَلَى مَرْيَمَ بُهْتَانًا عَظِيمًا وَبِكُفْرِهِمْ وَقَوْلِهِمْ عَلَى مَرْيَمَ بُهْتَانًا عَظِيمًا. Speaking of the Jews, the Holy Quran is accusing them of certain misconduct and offenses against Allah, and counting the reasons why they were cursed at last by Allah. Justification is being provided. So it says, وَبِكُفْرِهِمْ. Number one, they rejected a prophet of Allah when he came to them. وَقَوْلِهِمْ عَلَى مَرْيَمَ بُهْتَانًا عَظِيمًا. And their accusation of, excuse me.
Translating to her, what you said.
Right. But if we could do it later on, perhaps it would be better, Then, when you speak something or you do something, my eye is caught with that and I can't carry on with the same flow. So the second thing was an allegation against Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, that she was not a chaste lady. So because she was not chaste, she gave birth to an illegitimate child. The second accusation against the Jews is mentioned in this. The third is, وَقَوْلِهِمْ إِنَّا قَتَلْنَا الْمَسِيحَ عِيسَى ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. And their claim that it is we who got Jesus murdered. What was Jesus? They tauntingly say, Isa ibn Maryama, Isa, son of Mary, the so-called prophet of Allah. We have succeeded in murdering him. This is the gist of their claims or their misconduct, which is quoted in the Holy Quran as the reason why they were finally cursed by Allah. Now the point is, what is the relationship between the first allegation against Mary and the last claim that we have murdered? Without understanding this relationship, we cannot understand the genuine, real import of this verse. Returning back to that allegation against Mary, imagine the position of the Jews to whom a man came claiming that he was the same Messiah whose advent they were awaiting, while his birth was of dubious character. Nobody knew exactly whether he was born out of a special sign of Allah or illegitimately. So ordinarily, whenever somebody, an ordinary man, claims to be a prophet of God, a messenger of Allah, the spontaneous reaction is that of hostility. But if a man has that dubious background, then obviously, they would react violently against such a claim. So the Holy Quran says that they blamed Mary for unchaste behavior unjustifiably. I'm not going to the detail why the Holy Quran considered it unjustifiable. But he condemns them as making wrong accusation against Mary. Now the second part of their claim that we murdered him has its roots in the Old Testament. Also the first part. According to the Old Testament, an illegitimate child is less than a man who does not enjoy equal status with other legitimate children of human beings. So it's a blemish to be born illegitimately, according to the Bible. But if somebody dies hanging from a tree, according to the words of the Bible, if he had earlier made the claim that God spoke to him and he is a messenger of God, and yet God permitted him to die hanging from a tree or from a cross, that would be a sure sign that this man was an impostor and he has been cursed. So this is the underlying meaning of the whole verse as it builds the case against the Jews. The ultimate message is that the Jews very cunningly planned a countermeasure against Jesus Christ by declaring to the people that this man has neither a blessed beginning nor a blessed end. On the contrary, he has a cursed beginning and a cursed end. So if they had succeeded in having him murdered through crucifixion, then they would be justified at least in making this claim. Because the birth end was not seen by anybody, only Allah knew. But the death upon cross had an evidence in itself, was an evidence in itself so solid that nobody could deny that. So what is the answer of the Holy Quran in response to this claim? So reaching this end that they claim that we had murdered in Jesus Christ, the Holy Quran leaves the previous things alone and mainly takes up this issue of murder of Jesus Christ at the hands of the Jews or the Roman Empire. It's one and the same thing, in fact. So the Holy Quran says, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. They failed to murder him. They failed to crucify him. وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ. But some sort of confusion, some sort of ambiguity was created whereby they thought they had succeeded in killing him through crucifixion. So a measure of their claim is right, but not entirely. Shubbiha lahum means they were in doubt. They were not sure of what had happened. They attempted to crucify him, but failed to murder him. This is the message of this verse, which will be further verified and supported by the end part of the same verse. So the Holy Quran says, وَلَكِنْ شُبِّهَ لَهُمْ وَإِنَّ الَّذِينَ اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ لَفِي شَكٍّ مِّنْهُ. Those who have disagreed regarding the actual happening of crucifixion, what happened, are themselves in doubt about it. They're not sure exactly as to what happened. مَا لَهُمْ بِهِ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا اتِّبَاعَ الظَّنِّ. They do not follow anything real solid, but only there's a guesswork they're making. What happened actually? وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا. One thing is certain, that they positively failed to murder him. So the conclusion is not that they positively failed to crucify him, because an attempt was made, which was made obscure. But one thing which the Holy Quran rejects totally and entirely is the fact that they failed to achieve the purpose of crucifixion and they failed to murder him. So instead of saying وَمَا صَلَبُوهُ يَقِينًا, the Holy Quran says وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا. All right, if they failed to murder him, certainly they couldn't claim. What happened to him? The second following verse is the main controversial part of this verse between us and the non-Ahmadi Sunnis. The verse says, بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ or بَلْ رَفَعَهُ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. They failed to murder him, but what actually happened was that God raised him to himself. This is the literal meaning. God raised him to himself. وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. And Allah is capable or powerful to do whatever he pleases with honor and dignity, and is also wise. He doesn't do things against the dictates of wisdom. Everything which he does has an underlying wisdom in his acts, in his decisions. Everything he does is wise. Now, the non-Ahmadi position. They say when it is said bal, the opposite of murder, they believe is ascension to heaven. If somebody is not murdered and the Quran denies murder, rejects the concept of murder, they say the obvious opposite is ascension from the earth to heaven. This is what we do not accept, because it's absurd. Many a time a mullah has come to me with this, verse in his mind, and many a time instead of indulging in longish debate, I have inquired the simple question, O Maulana Sahib, is your grandfather alive? Was your grandfather murdered? And he says, no, most often. I said, if he was not murdered, did he ascend to heaven? Is he still alive? He says, no, what are you talking about? I said, it's not what I am talking about, it's what you are talking about. You say the opposite of murder is ascension to heaven. And an escape from death. So you deny both these things in relation to your own grandfather. When you say he was not murdered, when I inquire about what happened to him, did he ascend to heaven? You say no. When I inquire from you, is he still alive? You say no. So both the inferences you draw from the verse, controversial verse between you and us, are rejected by you yourself. Where is the wisdom in that inference? You see, all that the verse says is, Jews failed to murder him. The final outcome of their attempt of crucifixion is mentioned, وَمَا قَتَلُوهُ يَقِينًا. So if some people are false in their claim that they had murdered someone, what would be the logical conclusion? That that person must have been lifted to the fourth heaven because he was not murdered? Absurd. So what is the meaning of this verse? Bal rafa'ahu Allahu ilayhi. First of all, I point out that this verse does not say that he was lifted to any heavenly recesses anywhere else. Allah says, Bal rafa'ahu Allahu ilayhi. But God raised him unto himself. Now this is the opposite of curse. If somebody claims that some man is cursed, and Allah rejects this claim, and he says, no, he came even closer to me after your attempted murder, this is how he would describe. Bal rafa'ahu Allahu ilayhi. Allah raised his status even higher than before, and raised him unto himself. There is no six-dimensional world the Holy Quran is talking about. There is no heaven, no earth which is spoken of. All that the Holy Quran is claiming is that the Jews are false, they are liars when they say Jesus' birth was cursed, his death was cursed, so he must be a cursed man. Giving them a lie, rejecting their claim. The Holy Quran says the opposite was true. If a man is not cursed, he is not raised to the heaven, is he? He is brought closer to God. That is the opposite of curse. So this is exactly what is said in this verse. Bal rafa'ahu Allahu ilayhi. Instead of what you claim, that Jesus ended up as a cursed man, he ended up as a man who was even closer to God than ever before. Because what he suffered at the hand of his enemies, just for the sake of Allah. So all those who suffer at the hands of the enemies for the sake of Allah become closer to Allah and become blessed by Him. This is the natural conclusion drawn by this verse. Now I turn to the verse following. And there also the non-Ahmadi Muslims think, the scholars among them, that they have very solid proof in their hand that Jesus Christ is not yet dead. They don't say He died much later on. They say this verse is a positive proof in favor of our belief that Jesus Christ is not as yet dead at the time of this claim. How do they infer from this verse? The literal meaning is, just a minute. وَإِن مِّنْ أَهْلِ الْكِتَابِ إِلَّا لَيُؤْمِنَنَّ بِهِ قَبْلَ مَوْتِهِ وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَكُونُ عَلَيْهِمْ شَهِيدًا. That there is none from among the people of the book, but they would believe in him or in it. Now, this reference is a nondescript reference. I'll turn to that later on, once again. But the literal meaning is that there is none from among the people of the book, but he would who will have faith in Jesus Christ before his death. So the interpretation made by the non-Ahmadis is that here his death refers to Jesus Christ. And because Ahle Kitab, all of them have not yet believed in him, and most of the Jews continue to reject him, so the verse has not yet come to be realized. It is not yet fulfilled. When will it fulfilled? They say when it will be fulfilled, then all the Ahle Kitab, all the people of the book, without exception, will have a belief in him. That is before he dies. So they say obviously it means that Jesus is still alive in the heaven, and unless Ahle Kitab completely and totally believe in him, without exception, before his death, this verse will not be true unless we understand it in that context. Now, and that they say will happen when Jesus Christ returns from heaven bodily to earth, pays a second visit, and because it will be a grand scale miracle on the part of Jesus Christ, so all enemies would repent, having rejected him earlier, and would believe in him. This is the understanding of the non-Ahmadi mullahs of this part of the verse. Now this in itself is full of so many absurdities that when I point out to you the absurdities, you will not believe how a genuine religious scholar can entertain such a thought at all. This interpretation is definitely contradictory to other statements of the Holy Quran. They stand counter to each other so confrontally that if one is right, the other has to be wrong. The Holy Quran mentions another promise made to Jesus Christ that till the Doomsday, I will always keep your followers above those of the Jews who have rejected you. So this means that a part of the Jews would continue to reject him till the end of the day, end of the universe. So if that was to happen, and the Holy Quran is very clear about it, how can you expect this verse to declare that a time would come before the Doomsday when all the Jews without fail would have believed in Jesus Christ? Do you entertain a contradiction in the Holy Quran? It's impossible. So your meaning has to be wrong. Secondly, the Holy Quran is speaking of the Jews of the time of Jesus Christ himself. The issue is being debated with reference to their claim that they have murdered him. And the issue is being related with reference to the confusion caused by the act of crucifixion and their lack of belief, the lack of surety, whether Jesus was dead or alive. This is the issue being discussed. So the Holy Quran speaks of that. Now, the Muslims believe that these ulama, also the Christians, that he, after the act of crucifixion, ascended to the fourth heaven. No, not Muslims say fourth heaven, the Christians say ascended to God wherever he is, and sat on the right hand of God to share his throne. And ever since he's there in that position of sitting on the right hand of God. Now this verse gives a lie to both these claims. If that is what happened, then how could the people of the time of Jesus Christ understand his truth, and how can they know really what had happened to him? Allah is explaining what had happened to him. Now, this verse can only be interpreted in a manner where these objections are not confronted. There are many ways in which Ahmadis have presented their interpretation, but recently I have added one, which, after contemplating and praying to Allah, I think was deeply satisfying. And this is this interpretation which I am going to share with you. You know, before the crucifixion, Jesus Christ had promised his people that he would leave them and go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Correct? Anybody who knows his Bible should say yes. This was a promise made by him. And about his advent, the Holy Quran says, Rasulan ila Bani Israel. He was not a prophet to one or two tribes of Israel, but he was a messenger sent to all the tribes of Israel. The total Israel, the entire Israel, were the people whom he addressed. Now, if he had ascended to heaven after the crucifixion, how could he keep this promise? And how could he deliver his mission towards Israel? Because at the time of the crucifixion, there were only two tribes of Israel present around Palestine. Out of the 12 tribes, 10 had already been expelled after the invasion of Nebuchadnezzar of Judea. And they are the people who are referred to in the Bible as the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Everybody understood this message from Jesus Christ. So he promised them that he would leave them and go to the lost sheep of Israel. And what he did instead, both according to the Muslims and the Christians themselves, he forgot this promise and ascended to heaven. What happened to those people to whom he was to go? Why did he forget that promise? So any interpretation which leads us to that problem is unacceptable. Now, I have found the clue to the solution of this verse in the one substitute word. When I say that substitute word, I have to explain that, otherwise you will not be able to understand the whole thing. When the Holy Quran says, "Im min ahlil kitabe," there is none from among the people of the book, it doesn't say in ahadum min ahlil kitabe. Ahadun means even one person. It doesn't say either that im min fariqum min ahlil kitabe. So either one is substituted for the lack of this word between in and ahlil kitab, min ahlil kitab, or the other has to be substituted. If we say the Holy Quran means in ahadum min ahlil kitabe, then the meaning would be all the ahlul kitab, each one of them, would believe in him before his death. This is a claim contrary to the verse of the other verses of the Holy Quran, as I have already established. So this meaning is out of question. But if we replace ahadun with fariqun, then the whole dilemma is resolved. What the Holy Quran meant was that there would be no tribe from among the house of Israel, or no sect from among the house of Israel who would not believe in Jesus Christ before his death. Now this belief is not a total belief of all the numbers. This belief is through representation only. When you say all have believed, like the Holy Quran says, Kullun amana billahi wa malaikatihi wa kutubihi wa rusulihi, it doesn't mean that every person in the world all entirely have believed. It means all the sections of the human society, by representation, have accepted him. All the people worth the song, as they say. So exactly this should be the meaning of this verse in relation to the declaration that all the Ahl Kitab would believe in him before his death. By all, it doesn't mean each and every one of them. It means out of the 12 tribes, at present only two represented in having believed in him. But he was Rasulun ila Bani Israel. He was a prophet to all of Israel. How could he come to an end without completing his mission? And how could he break his own promise given to his own people that I would leave you and go to the lost sheep of Israel, unless he is saved from crucifixion and travels in pursuit of the lost sheep of Israel? So the verse becomes so understandable and so clear and so powerful as a proof of the truth of Jesus Christ. So it should be interpreted as this, that there is no section of the people of the house of Israel but would certainly believe in this prophet of Allah before he dies, which means he has yet a mission unfulfilled to perform. He has yet some work to do. And if you understand this verse, obviously then you begin to understand the Quran, the biblical reference that I will leave you and go to the lost sheep of Israel. Because the lost sheep of Israel didn't go to heaven. They were spread out here on the same earth. So Jesus must have followed them, must have pursued them. And this is exactly what the Ahmadiyya interpretation is. He was saved from crucifixion. He is found to move away from the place of crucifixion towards some countries in the east. This is as it is reported in the Bible and through other Christian sources of history. He does not remain there where he was attemptedly crucified, but he moves away slyly under the cover of darkness. He refuses the suggestion that he should appear to the people of the cities in the broad daylight. He doesn't even visit the cities even in darkness. Quietly, slyly, stealthily, he moves along the course of his migration. This is what I believe was the real act of migration of Jesus Christ. Migration from his people towards a people who had not yet received his message. That is, wherever the Jews had earlier got during their exodus, Jesus followed them and delivered his message. Now, where was that? We know from the authority of the Christian scholars themselves that earlier the Jewish people had spread eastwards, and the people of Afghanistan and the people of Kashmir are both from the same Jewish stock, as we read about in history. They do not belong to the subcontinent India and Pakistan and Afghanistan, because they are differently featured, their style, their nomenclature, their complexion, everything about their build and the habit is different from the local people of India and around. They are more like the old Jewish people of the time of Moses, etc. So that is why we agree with that inference of the Christian scholars that the people of Afghanistan and Kashmir belong to the stock of the old house of Israel. So where should Jesus go? In pursuit of the same people. If he was a true prophet, he had to fulfill his own word, his own promise. That is exactly what we read about him. That I would leave you and go in search of the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when we claim that Jesus Christ reached Kashmir and his grave is still found there, for any scholar it is an open question to go and study, then it is not just an imaginary tale we are telling. We have very positive proofs from history, not only of the Jewish people, but also from the history as preserved in India of the time of Jesus Christ as to what was happening in Kashmir in those days. With that explanation, I'll rest my case. And I hope you will find this explanation satisfactory. The fact is that there was a Raja, Maharaja, a Grand Duke of Kashmir, whose name was Raja Shalbahan. Shalbahan is the name. And he was a contemporary of Jesus Christ according to the Hindu historians themselves. His age is described to be exactly the same as that of Jesus Christ. It is reported in Puranas, a Hindu book of annals, historical annals, that once Raja Shalbahan was enjoying a hunting expedition in some of the valleys of Kashmir, when he suddenly noticed an elderly, holy-looking man in company with some others who, according to that statement, was a foreigner. It was not a Kashmiri he was talking about. He saw an elderly, holy-looking man in company of some other foreigners entering the valley of Kashmir. So he was surprised. He dismounted himself from the mount and approached him and inquired from him, "Who are you?" He said, "I am a prophet of Allah. A prophet of Allah who was attemptedly murdered by his own people. But the attempt to murder me was frustrated by Allah. And then I left those people and migrated towards this place." This was the answer. Still recorded, still found in all the Hindu temples, perhaps not all, if not all important Hindu temples. You can try your luck here in England, and you will find that many Hindu temples still retain this Purana with them, and they can translate this verbatim as I am translating it to you. So he was surprised. He said, "Okay, what is your name?" He said, "Mashihu." Masihu. Because the Kashmiris tend to pronounce Sin as Sheen. So instead of Masihu, they say Mashihu. That is why the experts of nomenclature say that Kashmir is in fact Kasir. Is it an Arabic expression which means like Syria. Syria is also a beautiful country with fountains and things and hills and dales. So they say this was an eastern Syria. Ka means like. But there, its seen is turned into sheen. They say Kashmir. And even today, some Kashmiris refer to Kashmir as Kashmir, meaning that the original root is Kasir. So anyway, for Jesus Christ to have been recorded as saying, as declaring his name to be Mashihu, is not very much away from the right pronunciation. Mashihu is just one and the same thing. To dispel any doubt which may be entertained by some, the next question which is reported was this: what is your religion? What is the name of your religion? The answer was love, of course. Love is the name of my religion. But don't you read Christianity in these answers? Don't you identify the person of Jesus Christ in this description? So clear. If not Jesus Christ, who else was that prophet in the world? None is reported in any historical book or any religious book other than Jesus Christ during that period, who was attemptedly murdered, who migrated from his country, whose religion was closest to that of love, and whose name was Mashiach. So this interpretation of the verse which I have just mentioned is not only logical from within, but it also has external evidence to support it. I hope I have answered all the queries which were agitating your mind. Thank you. Whatever is left, she will explain to you. She knows English so well. Inshallah, she will explain to you. Right? Okay. I'm sorry this question has taken so long, but still we have around 20 minutes or thereabout. So would you like, are there others who are interested in asking questions?
Yes, Huzur, there are some here, and there's one lady who is being taken ill today. She has sent in her question, if I may submit that.
So we defer that till we have finished the questions of those who are present here.
All right. The next is Sister Zainab Yakasai.
Sister Zainab, from East Africa?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
From Egypt.
From?
Egypt.
Right.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السؤال الأول: أرجو من سيادتكم التقرب بإعطائي فكرة عامة عن الجماعة الإسلامية، وما هو الأحمدي، وهل هو له صلة قرابة بسيدنا عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام، أو هو سيدنا عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام نفسه؟
Ma, will you come and
The second one.
translate it into English for everybody to understand?
The second question.
Shall we do it one after the other, first and then second?
There are three.
Okay,
together.
Please continue, please. Sorry.
Alright. حسب اعتقادي أن سيدنا عيسى ابن مريم عليه السلام سيأتي بعد عيسى الدجال ليعيد نشر الإسلام مرة ثانية بنفس مبادئ القرآن الكريم وسنة نبيه سيدنا محمد عليه الصلاة والسلام، ولكنه سيأتي كحاكم وليس نبيا. هل هو عيسى ابن مريم؟ فهل هناك اختلاف بين سيدنا عيسى ابن مريم والأحمدي؟ السؤال الثالث: في سورة الجمعة الآية 4 تقول: وآخرين منهم لما يلحقوا به وهو العزيز الحكيم. صدق الله العظيم. وما هو معناها؟ وهل هناك صلة بنزول سيدنا عيسى ابن مريم مرة أخرى لينشر الإسلام، أم هناك شخص آخر؟ This is 3 questions.
I've understood, but let Maha first translate them one after the other in English for everybody to understand it. If I translate it, maybe I make some mistake here or there. I hope not, but it's better for Maha to do that.
Assalamu question. The first question is about according to the beliefs of the Ahmadis, what is the Messiah, and especially why is he called Son of Mary?
That's right.
And is he related to the Messiah Jesus, Son of Mary, a relation of blood, or is he the same Jesus? The second question is that she believes that Jesus will come after the Dajjal with the same teachings of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. And the question is that she believes that he will come as a ruler and not as a prophet. So who is the Dajjal, and how can we explain those concepts? The third question is about the same verse, وَآخَرِينَ مِنْهُمْ لَمَّا يَلْحَقُوا بِهِمْ. And I think
Already explained.
it has been already explained.
So let's remain confined to the first two questions.
Yes.
Now repeat the first.
The first is about the concept of the Messiah and why is he called the Son of Mary.
The simple answer is that Messiah also claimed that he would come again. And all the Christians are awaiting his re-advent. Now, if a reference was not given to that person particularly, that the Messiah to come would fulfill that prophecy as well, then the message will remain obscure. So when Hazrat Muhammad ﷺ claimed that a Messiah would come, to identify that Messiah with the first Messiah, it was essential that his full name be given. Otherwise, people could think that Messiah was Ibn Maryam, this is a different Messiah. Rasulullah was talking of a different Messiah. Messiah himself was talking of his own advent, which is not yet fulfilled. So it was essential to fix the identity of the Messiah, so there is no confusion between the two prophecies. The same person is being talked about by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah as claimed himself that he would come again. This could only happen if his full name was given as Messiah, Son of Mary. Secondly, there is other more refined meaning, more spiritual meaning, which is related to a verse of the Holy Quran which says that every believer, all believers, have to be like either the wife of Pharaoh or like Mary. This is the example of the believers given in the Holy Quran. And when it speaks of believers, they should imitate either the wife of Pharaoh or Mary. Immediately after that, Allah says that the Mary we are talking about was the one who was chaste, who took good care of her chastity. And the son born to her, was not an illegitimate child. It was a son born out of special favor of Allah. So far, we understand there is nothing very special about it, because this has been said elsewhere also in the Quran, that in Mary we breathed our spirit. The Holy Quran says, وَنَفَخْنَا فِيهَا مِن رُوحِنَا. In her did we breathe our spirit. But here, when Mu'mineen are likened unto Mary, when the question of breathing the spirit arises, then the Holy Quran doesn't say that we breathed our spirit into her. It says we breathed our spirit into him, which means there is a believer, a specific believer, who likened himself unto Mary so much that a spiritual son was born out of him, as if a son was delivered to Mary with the Spirit of Allah. So also in future, a new son of Mary would be born, spiritually, not physically, out of a believer who would liken himself unto Mary, who would have no wish to rise in status in any sort, who would be a humble person, who would not desire designations of any sort from Allah, Yet because he would be chaste, he would guard his ambitions. So God would breathe into him. And when God breathes into him, a son of Mary is born. So the new status of the person from the Ummah is described in a beautiful way in spiritual terms. So that is why also it was essential for Rasulullah to describe the future advent of that of son of Mary, because he would also be born spiritually like a son was born unto Mary. That is the underlying significance. The second question, please Maha, return.
It's about the concept of the Dajjal.
Yes,
and
that's right. Now, the point is, if in the prophecies, the Messiah who is promised by Hazrat Rasulullah as Isa ibn Maryam, he would descend. If this is what he meant literally to be the same Messiah as was born at the end of Moses' Ummah, if this is the meaning, then the prophecy, the whole prophecy has to be taken literally. And all that is mentioned in the prophecy must be taken literally. Jesus is literal, Dajjal is literal, his donkey is literal, and what the donkey does should also be understood literally. Because it is not metaphor then. But if Jesus is metaphorical, the one who would come in spirit but not in person, then the entire prophecy should be understood in its metaphoric concept or message, not literal message. God is speaking in parables and metaphors like Jesus Christ spoke in so much in parables. So the Holy Quran also employs parables. In this case, let me turn to the hadith you are referring to and remind you that neither Jesus is literal, nor the Dajjal is literal, nor his donkey is. All the prophecies have to be understood and interpreted, and there must be a spiritual key with which we solve the prophecy and understand the message. Now you have made it easier for me by mentioning the Dajjal. Jesus is mentioned to descend in the latter days, Jesus son of Mary of course, to do what? Among his functions would be to kill Dajjal, yaqtulul Dajjala, wa yaqtulul khinzir, to kill the swine, and yaksilus silib, to break the cross. These are the three functions mentioned in this prophecy. Now, if Dajjal means the same single joint-like figure, who would be so huge that while standing on the ground, his head would be above the cloud lines. He would have one single eye. That would be blind. One eye would be blind. The other eye, the single left eye, would be very bright. So bright and so powerful that it would be able to x-ray what is underneath the earth and see the treasures lying under the earth. So one eye is so bright and so brilliant, the other is absolutely blind, which is right. Now we believe that this is all metaphors. Neither one single person is mentioned as Dajjal, not real swines are mentioned in relation to Jesus killing them, not real crosses made of stone or jewels and things are meant to be literally broken by Jesus Christ. Neither Jesus is literal nor these things are literal. So our interpretation is very consistent in this regard. We believe that Jesus is a spiritual representation of the old Christ, not literal. Not that he would return himself. When he comes, his main task would be to break the cross, which means to break the central argument of Christianity in favor of Trinity. This is cross. This is a symbol of cross, Trinity. So he would come and break the cross spiritually, in the sense that he would provide such powerful arguments against the Trinity as if cross is broken. Not literally, of course. He would kill swine means that he would wage a war against a culture which has lost coyness and shame and decency, which is as shameless and as permissive as you find the swines. So it is, again, an expression of rejection of a cultural behavior which is not at all decent anymore. It's more like the cultural background of swines rather than those of human beings. So he would wage a war against those indecencies as well. When it is said that he would kill the Dajjal, it doesn't mean he would murder him with his sword. It simply means that the influence of the Dajjal would begin to wane out from the time he comes, and he would gradually dissipate. And new things would appear. There will be a revolution in the world taking place. These old huge powers will gradually lose their strength. So by Dajjal we mean great Christian powers. The symbol of Christian powers is Trinity, cross, eating of swine. So in every way you look at it, the finger is pointing at the same people. That is, in the latter days, according to this prophecy, the Christian world will become so powerful that they will rule the entire world. And this would be the stature of Christianity, as symbolized in a great giant against whom nobody has any power. This giant is described in the Hadith as conquering every land, every people of the world. And in the rise of the West, in the current history or the previous history, you find not an inch of land left unoccupied, ungoverned by the superior might of the Western nations. There was a time, where either it was ruled by the British or by the Russians or by the Germans or by any other Europeans or even Americans, but the whole globe fell under the sway of Christian powers. This is exactly what has been prophesied by Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah regarding the advent of Dajjal. So we see as having been fulfilled that Dajjal has come, that fight has begun. And what is the main instrument in the hands of Hazrat Masih Maud al-Islam through which he broke the cross into two? His claim that Jesus died a natural death. He did not die upon cross. And he died like an ordinary prophet of Allah, so he was not little son of God. If you believe in this, if enough proof is provided to you to believe in this, then cross is broken. That is one meaning, the meaning we prefer. If you reject that meaning, then the only alternative left to you is that meaning which is presented and adhered to very tenaciously by the anti-Ahmadiyya mullahs all over the world. They say, no, this is nonsense. We will not permit you to interpret the Holy Quran sensibly. What right have you got to interpret the Holy Quran or the Holy Hadith sensibly? Let us follow the literal meaning exactly, verbatim, as it expresses itself. So they say, we believe that Jesus would descend from heaven, literally the same person as lived around 2000 years ago. Where is he now when we inquire? They say somewhere between this world and the other world, dangling somewhere in the fourth heaven, by himself alone. Because all prophets are dead and they have gone to the other world. Jesus is still alive, so he's preserved before that border. And according to them, that border lies somewhere in the fourth heaven. This is a little meaning. At least they're honest in that much that they stick to the little meaning. But this is the absurdity they have to believe, and they want all the other Muslims to believe. But then follows the greater absurdities, compounded absurdities. They say Jesus would come, say after 2000 years. So far he has not come according to them. Then what would he find? He would find a Dajjal, a huge giant, the dimensions of which are so incredible that even such a man is not mentioned in fairy tales or tales of the jinns. No giant will you find mentioned as big and as huge as the Dajjal. So he said there would actually be a giant born, and he would travel the whole earth and conquer every nation and every people. Now what would be the mode of his travel? How would he travel so fast? Would he run very fast? They say, no. The hadith also tells us that a donkey would be born to carry this huge giant. And the donkey would be as huge, matchingly, as the giant himself would be. The distance between two earlobes would be 105 feet. And as far as his hugeness is concerned, he will carry the giant on his back to travel around the world. But at the same time, there will be side openings in his belly, and he would stop at stages, and it would be announced that the time for the giant to depart has come. So many minutes left, come and get in. And people would rush in and enter the belly of the giant from the side openings, from both sides. Strange sort of giant, with a strange sort of donkey to help him. And then the hadith tells us that this donkey would not eat fodder. It would be a fire-driven donkey, fire-powered donkey. It would eat only fire to get its energy to move, to function as a life thing does. So as against the fodder-driven donkeys, a new donkey would be created for the sake of the Dajjal, which would be fire-powered. This is very clear. Now, what would be the speed of that donkey? How fast would he carry that giant and the people in his bellies? The speed, according to Muhammad ﷺ, would vary from land to sea to air. On the land, he is described to be able to travel as fast as ordinarily people travel for 1 month. And travel a distance in 1 month, according to the old culture, old system. That donkey would cover the same distance in 1 hour. So instead of 30 days continuous journey, he would carry his passengers to the destiny within 1 hour. That fast will he move. Will he move only on land or also in the sea? The hadith says, yes, he would be able to swim on the oceans and he will not drown. The same donkey, the same fire-powered donkey is mentioned in the tradition to go across oceans and he would not sink. But he would carry even greater loads on his back. It is said that it would be the same donkey employed by Dajjal, the power which owns it, to transport wheat and other food aids to poorer nations, as if that donkey would be carrying mountains of food on its back when it swims in the ocean. And that food would be sent not to the poor people of all the world indiscriminately. That would be sent only to those who bow to Dajjal and his supremacy. So the aid would be tied, would be linked. It would not be free aid to Ethiopia, for instance, when it dies of hunger, or to Somalia when it dies of hunger, because they would not be tied up with the American policies. That aid would be tied only to those, to the condition that they accept the supremacy of their master Dajjal, and then they will be provided with food, otherwise not. Now this donkey would do this task according to the traditions. But this is not all the surprise for us. The Holy Prophet says that donkey would be able to fly above the cloud line, because he says at times he would make a jump as big as if his one foot was in the east and second would be in the west. So any aeroplanes which takes off from India, from Africa, from Pakistan, or any other eastern countries, and lands either in Europe or in America, continues to declare the truth of the Holy Prophet, that this is what he envisioned, this is what he saw beforehand. And I am here as an evidence that he was a true prophet of Allah. His prophecies were right. That is when it is interpreted our way. When you believe that the prophecy was metaphorical, it didn't mean a literal donkey. It meant a mode of travel only. A mode of travel which would be a land mode of travel, sea mode of travel, air mode of travel. But the common feature would be that all these modes will be fire-powered as against the food of donkeys. So this is again a metaphorical issue. But not so with the other mullahs. They said, no, don't be absurd. When Hazrat Rasulullah said such a donkey would be born, believe it would be born. If not today, tomorrow. You see a huge donkey born out of a weakling mother, ordinary mother, donkey, who would grow to this abnormal size. And then you will see the giant also appearing from nowhere. And then he would start riding, and there will be opening made on the side of the donkey. All these modern planes will be abandoned, all the trains and the ships would be abandoned. A new mode of travel will be provided to mankind. They would always prefer to sit in the belly of the donkey. This is what they would have. Which side are you on? Consult your conscience. Which is a greater tribute to the greatness of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. This meaningful interpretation, or that nonsensical interpretation, which puts to shame even the worst fairy tales, if taken literally. Thank you. Now I'm reminded that the time is over and people are waiting for me in the mosque to lead them the Zuhr prayer. I understand perhaps there will be other questions, but why can't we have another meeting with these ladies whose questions are as yet unanswered? Maybe a smaller function could be held, or we could answer these questions by MTA through Muslim Television Ahmadiyya, and a recorded tape could be sent to those ladies who asked these questions and would be awaiting the reply. Which would you prefer? I mean, it's an open option for Lajna. If Lajna can organize another meeting with such ladies whose questions as yet remain unanswered, I am ready to come again and sit with you. As long as those questions are not answered, I will remain available. Or the second option is that you pass over the written questions from them to me, and during my question answer sessions on television, which is globally relayed, I would take up these questions, and if they have an antenna, they could hear directly. If they don't have dish antenna, then Lajna could provide them with videos or request them to come for a common function where they would have a cup of tea and also see the video. Right? Thank you very much. I'm sorry again, I apologize for not being able to answer all the questions because of the shortage of time. Next year time, inshallah, we hope we'll be able to start at sharp at the appointed time. This time it took us about 15 minutes extra to start.
Because the cameras have to come down from upstairs.
Oh, so, all right, because we started late, I think I can excuse myself for 15 more minutes. So send a message to the people who are awaiting me in the mosque that they would share the blessing of Allah if they wait for the sake of Allah for another 15 minutes. So let me fulfill the appointed time, allocated time, and then I leave after 15 minutes. Okay? Agreed?
Yes, sir.
So next question, please.
Sister
But it will be
Sadia,
as big a question as it was previously.
Sister Sadia Mustafa from Egypt.
I thought her question was already answered.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. And how are you?
Alhamdulillah.
Glad?
I have wrote you a letter. Thank you for seeing us.
Yes.
Don't know if you received it or not. And since I saw you in private, I've been to Hajj twice. And my question today, there's quite a few, but just the first one. Why the ladies, some of the ladies, Muslim ladies, they come heavily makeup and they show their hair? It's not in the Quran, is it?
Would you kindly help me understand this?
I
Voice was
said-
not properly carried.
I said-
Have you understood?
Yes.
Tell me.
Some of the ladies, they are heavily makeup and then the scarf.
Right.
Yeah, I want to know that's not in the Quran.
All right. You see, in the Holy Quran, all that is said is that the Muslim ladies should draw their head covers, pull the head covers also across their faces. Not faces, I'm sorry, across their breasts. The word face is not used there. Now, the interpretation varies regarding the meaning of how the covers are to be pulled. Some people say the head should be covered and the large part of the face should remain visible, and the rest of the chadar or the sheet they vary should be brought from here like this and put hanging on the front. So that would create a decent dress sort of, which would discourage the wanton eyes and say, look here, we are not available. You were honest, chaste ladies. So the message will be delivered and they will not find any problem. Some say no, it should be drawn like this, from in front. Now, if it is to be drawn like this in front, although I know many MD scholars whom I deeply respect have also taken this stance, but somehow I cannot bring myself up to full acceptance of this because it is not only the face they have to cover according to this verse. They have to draw it full length down to their navels, for instance. Now, how would that woman look like and how would she be able to negotiate herself in day-to-day life if she has covered the whole length of like this, like this? It leaves no room for normal activities for any lady. So that is why I prefer that meaning that it should be drawn across your breast, but also it should cover a little bit of the chin as well, maybe. This is the interpretation also Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ as reported from his writings in Islami Usul ki philosophy, the teachings of Islam. Now despite this, I prefer those Pakistani Ahmadi ladies who have been using Pakistani style of veil, not a drawn, lengthily drawn head cover down to their knees or something, but a sort of easy, comfortable arrangement of covering their face like this, and down the lower part of the veil should be pulled across like this, so they can freely move about with eyes in the open. Right. I prefer them as yet to continue with that, because it is not only a question of interpretation, it's also a question of social problems. Always when the two generations meet, the transition from the habits of one generation to another is a very critical decision to make. If suddenly I tell all the Ahmadi ladies to throw away their head cover, the veils and covers, and only cover this like that I have explained, the message delivered to their future generation would be, we are free to do whatever you like. And they themselves would become suddenly very lax in their normal behavior. So it is a psychological problem and a social problem which I am facing. So I am gradually, slowly, cautiously bringing Ahmadi ladies to a custom of very strict observation, to a more lax observation which is in line with the Quran and not against the Quran.
Right.
The other emphasis also has its roots in the Holy Quran, because regarding the wives of the Holy Prophet particularly, the parda we find described is far more strict. So their honor and dignity requires that they should not be available to the common sight. So that is why they did observe parda far more strictly. And it was perhaps handed down from them, which resulted in various types of head covers, strict and less strict and so on. So we have to find a via media wisely, which does not endanger the new generation from following an adopting an over-free attitude.
What about the makeup?
Pardon?
What about the makeup?
Men?
No. What about the
makeup? Oh yes,
makeup?
that's very important.
Yeah.
There I have been always very consistent and very firm in my repeated reminders to the ladies that if they are lax in covering their face, they are only permitted it if they do not make up when they go out.
That's right.
Because on this, the Holy Quran is very specific.
Haram.
That do not make up, do not adorn yourself when you walk out in public.
That's right.
You see, do not show your zina.
That's right.
It also covers that.
That's in the Quran.
Yes, that's right.
That's right.
So there I advise Ahmadis, all right, if you're professionals, you have to adopt a comparatively lax attitude of parda, go ahead and do it. But don't make up. Don't make an effort to attract people to your beauty, not only to your beauty, but to beauty added upon beauty.
It's a sin.
Right?
It's a sin,
No,
according to
yes,
the
of course.
Quran.
It is violation of the Quran, so it is a sin of sort, of course.
Yeah.
So then I point out to a strange contradiction between this teaching and the practices we have learned from Western style of life. Most of the makeup used today is built or made in America or Hollywood or here and there. They are following the fashion as dictated in the most modern style of life of the Hollywood girls and women, etc. The point is simply this. If you go out so beautifully adorned and well made up, and you do not cover yourself, you play havoc with the peace of every Tom, Dick and Harry. You are not cheap, we know, but you appear as if you were cheap. You are not cheap, but you appear as if you are available, while you are not available. So it is not at all a reflection on your chastity that I am referring to. The message delivered to the common people is, here is a beautiful girl walking in such style, wearing such beautiful dress and also made up on top of that. So maybe this attraction is not without meaning. This is the message which must not be delivered. So in the West, what happens is, a lady, I'm not critical of the West as such, I'm just quoting a reality of life. And this is what the Orientals have also learned. Or maybe it is the West which learned this from the Orientals, I don't know. I'm not talking in the sense of division of the West and East, because this actually is a universal trend of ladies. I found it in my own house, everywhere in the world. In ordinary situations of how, in the houses, in the homes, they get up in the morning, you see them, and they're not shy, they're not ashamed. They feel confident and natural, the children see them, their husband, their brothers and sisters. But the moment you suggest to them, let's go out. Oh, look at the look at disappointment. You mean like this? What do you mean? Wait, I'll take an hour for makeup and things. Without being made up, they don't go out. While the Holy Quran says their beauty is for their kin and kith. Not only for husbands, for their brothers, for their sisters, for their children, etc. They should adorn themselves and look beautiful to them. Because home is the center of peace in Islam. But if there they look horrible, all with disheveled hair and things, and when they walk out to the street, to the market, they look so beautiful and well made up, this is not Islamic. Exactly the opposite of Islam.
That prove that they try to track the men's
I think,
attention.
let's stop at that. It's enough. Because of the time approaching, maybe we have still we have time for one more question. But this time not from you, from some other lady, please. Thank you.
Miss Gatwood, please.
Miss Gatwood. And he, you said?
Ms. Gatwood. It's Ms.
What was the surname?
Gatwood. Gatwood.
I see, please.
I'm a Christian,
Yes.
and you quoted the Bible in
Are
certain...
you from South India or?
From Bombay.
From Bombay,
Yep.
India, of course, yes.
So now you've quoted from the Bible, the Holy Bible, actually, but there are various versions of the Bible. It depends on which Bible you quoted from.
The Bible I quoted, and from where I quoted, is common to all versions.
Which one is that? The one that we use is the Jerusalem
I'll
one.
tell you. I will leave you and go to the lost sheep of Israel, to
Yes.
the house of Israel. This is a statement contained in all the Bible I know, all the biblical versions. But if they have changed it in the modern versions, it's no fault of mine.
No, this is the one I have. The one
They
I
have no authority to do that. They, who gave them the authority to change the Bible?
Quite.
So the traditional standard Bibles, if you open them, you will find this reference in every Bible.
I'm not talking about that reference. I am talking about where you quote about the Messiah, and also about a woman that is of child without being married. The child is not chaste.
I can, of course. Bible is full of those references.
Yes.
The New Testament is full of those references. Read the early part of the New Testament which relates to the return of Mary from her stay at some other place at some distance in a hilly township. When she is reported to have returned carrying her child, then the people of the township gather round and jeer and mock at her and say, "This is what you did."
But then those are things of the past. What we are concerned with is the religion for the future. And that is what
I mean to
Christianity
say
is all about.
They were not forgotten at all by the society. If in a living generation you see a girl bringing a child from somewhere who's not married and claiming that I'm chaste, and she is being crowded and hounded by the people around, do you think when such a child makes the claim that he is a prophet of Allah, they would all have forgotten all that past.
But then that's why it was in the scriptures that
But-
that would happen to Christ when he did come on this earth to save us from our sins. And according to the Quran,
but
side
where
by
is the
side with the
contradiction
Bible.
show me the contradiction between what I said and what you find in the Bible.
Well, the
This is the-
contradiction is
Yes.
that according to the Bible, whatever God has given us, whatever Allah has given us, if that's what Allah, then that is holy, that is good, no matter how it's given to us. Now, accordingly, Mary was a
This is
virgin.
not right. I'm sorry. You have not read your Bible
I have.
carefully.
I have.
Just, I show you.
I have.
Have you
I've
read
got my Bible
just a
here.
minute. Have you read St. John?
Yes, I have.
Do you know the concept of sin, inherited sin?
Yes.
According to St. John, all people born out of Adam and Eve were born sinful.
Yes, of course.
Am I right or wrong? So where is the holiness of all that comes from God?
But that's why he sent his son, and that's according to the Christians.
So your statement is wrong that everything which comes from God is holy. A child, newborn baby,
Yes,
has to be innocent.
it is. And it's
No,
holy.
according to the Bible, it is not.
No, which part of the Bible
St. John.
is it? St. John says,
St.
which,
John
can you
tells
tell me the
that
verse?
this is inherited. You read your own Bible. You said you.
I do, but I haven't
Oh,
seen
I don't
it.
remember the reference, but you'll find. Go home and in peace read this
No,
again.
I have read
You
my
will
Bible.
find this reference in St. John that the son was inherited by the children of Adam because they had sinned. So man from ever after, man since then lived in sin ever after, was born out of sin.
And that
It
is
was
why,
this
according to the
inherited-
Bible,
this-
according to the
It was,
Bible,
just a minute,
yeah?
please. This inherited sin was the main problem confronting the world, and God, according to St. John and St. Paul. Now, I'm not only quoting St. John, but add to it the explanations of St. Paul, then the whole picture will become clear. According to Pauline understanding of St. John and other scriptures, what happened was that God was caught in a dilemma whereby children of Adam were born all sinful,
True.
living with inherited sin.
And that is why Christ saved us.
That is
Yes?
what I'm saying. So God had no answer to that. How could he forgive a people who were born sinful out of no fault of theirs? This is the concept of justice you read about in the Bible and the understanding of the Bible by St. Paul. God himself created human beings out of no fault of theirs. Once Adam sinned, so the sin became inherited through blood continuously. So God wanted to solve it, resolve this problem. Why couldn't he forgive? They say it was against his sense of justice. It's against the sense of justice to forgive. Somebody must be punished for sins. So what a beautiful idea of dispensation of justice in this dilemma. According to Pauline understanding of Bible, God sent his own son, turned him into flesh. Flesh stood as a symbol of sin, and he made him crucify himself and get killed on cross. So thereby he paid ransom for the liberation of all the mankind from sin, or all of those at least who believed in him. Is that the true understanding of Bible or not?
Too true.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So where is the sense of justice in that?
Well, that's
One
why
man,
ours
one
is not,
person-
ours is not to
Just a minute.
question Allah.
No,
Yes.
no. Us is to question our own conscience.
Yes, but not Allah.
Our own conscience.
True.
And
Ours is
if
to
your
believe.
conscience comes out with a verdict which throws a blemish on the image of God, I would not accept it. If you can, go ahead and do it. But if you want to know more about this, read my book, which will be provided to you on this very issue. The title is From Facts to Fiction, a journey from facts to fiction. That is Christianity. How it started with facts of Jesus, a holy man, and how ultimately it ended up in myths. There, all these issues have been taken up and answered. So you better go through instead of my trying to...
Another thing.
No, not another thing.
No.
Already
Okay,
the time is far more...
You say...
No. I am to decide.
Okay.
The time is already over.
All right.
I have borne with you very fairly and recently. When you even challenged me that I quoted Bible without authority, I reminded you, no. I am only quoting Bible and nothing is being attributed from me. Then to be on the safe side, when I told you the concept of Christianity, I asked you specifically, am I right or wrong? Then you said, yes, you're right in this understanding of Christianity. Then I criticized it. So this is not going to be a debate, a running debate between me and you, which may continue till evening. You read that book, there I have covered all the possible aspects. And if you find yourself unable to accept something logically, then come to me, not otherwise. Otherwise you have to give up your own life to God. And one thing let me say in the end, it is false for any Christian to maintain that Jesus offered himself in sacrifice himself. This is certainly wrong on the authority of the biblical statement of what happened during the last hours before crucifixion. All night long, he kept praying, crying, sobbing before God to take away that bitter cup. That bitter cup of crucifixion. Is this what one does? He offers himself, offers his life himself, willingly. Why to pray? And pray to someone in the heaven while he was a representative of the same person, one and the same. So one part of God praying to another part, I don't want to do it, but if you must, then thine will be done, not mine. Where is the optional sacrifice? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.